Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so we are in round 5 of the Superbet Chess Classic for Romania. And so I have the Bogdan-Daniel Deac versus Wesley. So I'm not sure if I said his name completely correctly, but appreciate everybody for stopping by very much. For all my people in the Philippines, magandang umaga, kumusta na, mabuhay to you guys. Masaya Kong Mukiti Kang Muli. Appreciate you guys very much. And I'm working on saying this particular phrase. The phrase is maraming salamat po sa I believe it's na noon awod. Na noon awod. Ing aking ma video. I'm trying to say thank you for watching my video. Thank you very much for watching my videos. I used to say na nude, and I believe that's incorrect. So na noon awod. If I'm saying that incorrectly, tweak me still. I'm trying to challenge myself to speak correctly. And for all of the people that are coming from Romania, I will say Bună dimineața and Mulțumesc. Appreciate you guys very much for coming by and stopping by. If you guys are ready to go, let's take a look, see what we have for this game. All right, so we got D4. Knight comes to F6. We got C4. E6. Knight comes to F3. We got D5. So I mean, those of you that watch my streams and stuff, you see that this is fairly common, play, and this is definitely something we've seen before. So this position should look familiar to you. We got knight coming to C3, and we have pawn takes C4. So we have the Queen's Gambit declined 3 knights of Vienna variation. Now Wesley so was mentioning this, and I will be putting that down in the description. They have his interview that he gave on I believe it's St. Louis Chess Club. So I'll be putting a link in the description, and I do have a comment on that video, and I have it time stamped for exactly when his interview comes up. So if you guys want to watch that, feel free. Like I said, I'll put that down in the description. But he was mentioning how he doesn't really play the Vienna ever. Maybe it's a little bit risky for black to play, but he went ahead and decided to go ahead and do it. So we have E4, bishop to B4, bishop takes C4, and then we have knight takes E4. And we've actually reached the point in the game. Snags a pawn. Okay, we've actually reached the point in the game. If you want to go ahead and stop the video and see what White's best move in the position, go ahead and do so. Okay, cool. So the best actual move in the position is castles. It might seem kind of weird because you're like, wait a minute, man. Like, knight could take on C3, then the pawn takes, and then you just want a pawn. And, I mean, you just, you got the rook in the corner and stuff like that. So if we have a situation like, let's say, we do see knight takes, pawn takes, and then we see, like, bishop taking here and stuff like that. I mean, it's like you move rook to B1, and then you got C5, and then you're kind of looking at it from White's perspective. Like, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't see it. The computer literally says that White is doing very, very well, but I'm just kind of looking at it like that's 2 pawns. Like, I mean, you're just down 2 entire pawns. Like, yeah, black's not really developed. Their king's in the center, but, I mean, it's 2 pawns. So, I mean, I don't know what the computer's talking about in this position. It looks scary to me as White, so I'm like, I'm not trying to play that. But what we do see in the game is knight takes, pawn takes, and then we see bishop coming back to E7. You have a pawn as black. But White is actually doing very well in this position. They are solid. Yes, they're down a pawn, but they're still doing okay. So congratulations if you guessed castles. I think naturally if we back up, I think most people's first impulse is to play a queen move that protects the knight. So like queen to B3 or queen to C2 or queen to D3. And those are all actually playable, but they're just not as good as castles. I mean, this is computer stuff, man. I mean, nobody understands the way the computer plays. I sure don't. So like I said, we do see knight coming to E5. We got castles by black. Queen comes to G4. Now, what I will say is probably the reason why White is doing so well in the position is because they do have they have a lot of activity going on. They do have some threats rolling. You got the queen trained on this square. You do have the bishop coming here. You do have to have like 2 moves before you're able to kind of get a knight into F6 to protect A7. So, I mean, you do have quite a lot of heat, going into black's position. So, I mean, it definitely kind of looks like it compensates for a pawn. Knight comes to c6. You got rook over to e1. You got f5. Why not knock the queen? We got queen to f3. Knight takes e5. Rook takes e5. And then we see king to h8. Now, you know, of course, we do not want to attack white too early with bishop to d6 and lose a pawn after rook takes f5. You know, we don't want to be there because, you know, of course, the pawn is pinned. So we're going to be seeing something like this. You know, you don't want to see that. Like, don't get that hooked up. So we do see king sidestepping to h8. We see bishop to f4, bishop to d6, and then we see rook to e2 in this game. And, you know, the crazy thing is we've actually seen rook a to e1 played, and that one time that it was played, white actually won the game. So they literally gave up their rook, and they just basically were just like, hey, man, you know, like, I'm just doing better than you. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy. But we do see rook to e2 in the game, so that allows a trade on f4. We got queen taking f4. And we have queen to d6. Queen takes d6, pawn takes d6, and we see bishop takes e6. So we finally gotten our pawn back. So this is some really deep thought that you have to put into the fact that you're down a pawn for like 12 moves and then you're up, or you're now even a pawn. So we see rook over to e8, which doesn't really pin anything because you can either go d5, which is playable, or what we saw in the game, which is rook a to e1. Bishop takes on e6, rook takes e6, rook takes e6, rook takes e6. And as you guys probably wonder by now, we are still not in the novelty. So these are all lines that have been played and have been analyzed before. And so we're just trudging along. So we got rook to c8. We have rook takes d6, king to g8. And then now we see the novelty of the game. It is h4. So this is the first time this move has been played. Now, in mentioning the novelty in this particular game, there is going to be something that I'm going to have to mention 8 moves from now. As far as that novelty goes, something that's very interesting that you very rarely see. But as of right now, h4 is the novelty of the game. So it's the first time this particular position has been seen. We see rook taking c3, rook to d8. With check, so that forces the king to f7. We see rook to d7 with check, king comes to f6, and then rook takes b7. Now we see rook to a3. Rook to a3 is very accurate because it's basically giving black the option to just draw at will. Because of course, if you were to see something to cover like rook to b2, you can literally just harass white's pawns all day, and it just secures the draw. Because you're going to see rook to d3, and you're going to see rook to b4, rook to a3, and I mean, you guys get the picture. You're going to pretty much just be going back and forth. So after rook to a3, we do see d5, hoping for possibly getting the rook behind the pawn, but black is just in time. After rook takes a2, we see d6, and then we see rook to d2, and as you can see, it wasn't really possible to get the rook behind the pawn. We see rook taking a7, rook taking d6, we have g3, we have h5, king comes to g2. And this is the exact position that I wanted to mention, that I mentioned 8 moves ago that I was going to be mentioning. Now, we did see the novelty of the game earlier with h4, but if we actually see rook to d3 in this exact position, then this position has been seen before. It came at a different move. I believe it was move 40 that this position, but this exact picture position has been seen before. It was just much later in the game, and it was through different types of moves. So if rook to d3 had been played in this game, then we wouldn't be in a novelty at move 23 like we were. So it's just kind of crazy when that popped up, because usually you don't see something, you know, 8 moves from now popping up in a game. So going back to what we had, we actually had king to g2, and then we saw rook to e6. So that just basically continued the game like normal. So we see rook to a8, we got rook to d6, king to f8 with check, we see king to g6, rook comes to e8, we see king to f6, we have rook to f8 again with check, king to g6, rook to e8, king comes back to f6, we see rook to f8 with check, and then we see king down to e5, and it is in this position that the players drew. There, like I said, I mean, not like I said, as you can see, there's not really a lot of progress that can be made. The king pretty much always has to, you know, kind of, you know, babysit the pawns here. You know, you can possibly push and stuff like that. And you can always try to cover with the rook. But it is going to be giving a little bit too much. And you can also, like, if we go back a little bit, after king to g6, instead of repeating, after we see rook to e8, or actually, no, as white, if we do see king to f3, it's pretty much going to be either side checking. It's going to be the same thing as far as black is concerned, because they're going to go and they're going to start checking white. So it's either white checking black or black checking white. And if you, so we got rook to a6, king coming up to f4, but then you see rook is going to be able to come down to a4 and check. And it's basically just going to be forcing the king to shift back and forth. You're going to have king to f3, and you're just going to be going back and forth. Because if you try to stray too far away, this rook is going to really harass these pawns. And so, you know, there's just not really any progress to get made by either side. So that is that. So that is that game. You know, Wesley is still in the lead. I haven't fully checked yet because he was tied with Alexander Grischuk. So I will be seeing if they are still actually tied, or if Wesley has been able to pull ahead in the standings. But I know he at least well, no, I don't know that he at least I know that he's still at least near the top. So I'm not sure if he's still in first place or not, but I will be getting that here pretty soon. For all of my other people in the Philippines, you have to forgive me. I'm a little bit off today, to be honest with you. So I'm going to try to do these languages, see if I can get them done pretty good. All right, so I have Maayong Buntag, Mayad na Agahan, Ninebag na Bigat, Masantos ya Kawasan, Marhe na Aga, Buenos Dias. We have Maayong Aga, Mapia na Uma, Kapian Kapu no Dios. I have it's getting tough, man. I'm not getting the right order with these. I'm gonna just have to look, man. Mayapa Abak, that was it. I think it's Mayad Naaga, and then I have Mapia Agay, and then I have Mapia Kapapita, and so my big Abukla, and then Maraja Nabuntag. So it's still gonna take me a little bit of time. I have them a lot, but it's just gonna take me some more time to get them all the way through. So I can just kind of spit all of them off in one row. Like I said, I'm a little bit off today. So I'm trying to get this video and these standings in for you guys. So I appreciate you guys watching. Maraming salamat po sa nanonood. I think I might have said that correctly. Let me know for sure. And I will keep tweaking the way I say it until I get it right, because I want a challenge. But I appreciate you guys very much, and I will see y'all next time.